Hi guys, welcome back to Raes Turquoise Turtle. Today we are doing another vinyl wrap. When I put the video for this one up, which hopefully was only a couple days ago, I got to talking with some of you and we were talking about different patterns and places to buy and not finding things I really loved. And we got on the topic of printing our own, and I decided to give that a whirl. So I had in-house Starcraft matte printable vinyl. I went on Creative Fabrica and printed off a couple of patterns. I had some snafus. I forgot to change my, not change my paper size, but adjust my paper size when I loaded the first page, and it printed crooked, which is why some of these are narrower to begin with. My own fault. These things happen. But, anyways, Creative Fabrica has freebies always, or you can buy a subscription, or you can buy by the piece. This was one of their digital paper sets that was free. Currently, it's called Garden of Roses. I don't know if it's still free now, but it was at the time. I think it was free for another 4 days or something. So, but they always have freebies, and they have tons of digital papers. You can buy digital papers on Etsy. I don't have a good a good paint program. I'm sure I could have done this in Inkscape, but I just trimmed the image down in my regular photo thing and then put them into my word processing program as pictures and printed them that way. These were two of the ones that I decided not to use right this second. I was originally going to do a 20 ounce. I decided to do a 30 ounce. And hopefully I'm not going to transfer ink all over everything, because where I loaded the paper wrong, I did end up with a little bit extra, but I think I'm going to run them in this order is where I'm leaning. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm not going to cover the bottom right now. I'm going to do that differently. So I'm just going to start wrapping. I'm going to peel some back just like I would with any other vinyl. And this is fairly thick. I don't often say this, but I actually prefer the Cricut printable vinyl to this product. It's not often I prefer a Cricut product, but in this case I do. And I'm going to leave a tiny edge of silver. And I'm going to hope that this goes on smooth. We'll see. And hopefully I've cut my paper fairly straight. I'd already cut all my papers on my paper trimmer as I was printing them because, like I said, I'd messed them up, and it was a little bit of work to get the ones that I'd printed crooked straightened back out. So but I am hopefully going to come up somewhat even. And that is pretty darn dead on across the top. Across the bottom's a little bit off, but I'm not going to be as concerned about the bottom as the top. Where I'm that little bit off, I'm going to grab my blade, which I just buried again. I've got too much going on here. Oh, I put it behind me. I'm just going to take my blade and bring that back up just to even it out a little bit. So, and I'm not going to worry about this overlap. I'm just going to let it stand. So I wanted to do this one next. This one next. Which I'm going to do this end first, so the overlap is over this part and not over the floral. And I do have a little tiny stripe of silver showing, but that's going to get covered, so I'm not actually going to be too terribly concerned with that right now. I'll just make sure my band is thick enough to cover it. I'm actually going to pull back. I don't like the way that's lining up. I'm going to pull it up and try placing it again. That seems better. There. So we're looking pretty good so far. I'm going to bring on my last color. The last pattern, I guess I should say. And I know these aren't lining up perfectly, my seams, and I'm just going to have to live with that because I'm almost afraid to peel a part up. And I might have to test it on a scrap piece. But I'm almost afraid to pull it up because I don't want to peel the printing off of the layer before it. And I'm not going to be terribly concerned with my bottom seam at the moment either, my bottom lip, because I am going to finish this off differently than I finished the other ones the other day. I'm going to bring that other edge up too, I think, in a minute. This one I need to have a little bit of a seam in between to get it to overlap correctly. See how I have that fold over here now? So I guess I'm going to see what happens if I lift it. See, that's what I'm afraid of happening. So I guess that answers that question, is cut them to size if you print them yourself. If you want a super neat seam, because now I'm stuck with this very wonky seam, which is okay. I can live with it. It's not ideal, but it's not truly the end of the world. And I think in this little bin I have this is just a little bin of washi tapes. Oh, it's in the tube, the one I'm looking for. Duh. I'm looking for this rose gold one. So I have this thicker copper one, and I have this skinnier rose gold. And I think I'm going to go with the rose gold and see if I can get this to work. If you don't have washi tape you want to use, you can always cut strips of vinyl. I don't even know that there's an end here. Found it. So I'm going to come back around to where my seam is. And hopefully lay the washi tape somewhat straight. And bring it back to itself. And do it again on the bottom seam. Okay. So, there we have it. I wish I'd lined this up better, but I don't dare take it off now. Not after seeing what that little bit of blue did here in the corner. It does seem to be stuck back down though, so it should be okay to cover. And so what I'm going to do is get it on the turner, and I'm not going to seal it. I'm going to test it without sealing it. But I'm going to get it on the turner. I'm going to give it a coat of epoxy, probably with a little bit of cheat glitter. I am going to spray paint the bottom later, after it's got a coat or two on it. You're going to ask why I didn't do it first. You could do it first if you wanted to, but then you're going to see all of the divots and stuff from this, especially if you remove these seals, which I'm going to just so you can see. I don't always pull them, but you'll be able to see all of this if you don't put a couple of coats of epoxy on before you spray paint. So I will spray paint at the same point that I do my actual decal. So I'm going to bring it over, get it on the turner, and get a coat of epoxy on it and get it going. And I am probably going to put a cheat glitter in it just because I want to give it a little sparkle. Okay, so I have my cup on a turner. I have my resin mixed. I put a little bit of my Mistress Cheat in the resin. And the paper I expect to immediately turn a slightly wetter look as soon as I get resin on it. It's just the way the printable vinyl usually looks. The color won't smudge, but the paper will soak in a little bit, I guess. And I didn't mix up a thick coat. I may actually grab some more quick. I do have more resin mixed. So, I probably won't put more glitter in, but just a little bit more resin. Just want to make sure I have enough for a good first base coat. And make sure you start coating the bottom as well, even though you didn't put anything on it. You want to get a coat on there. Just start filling that in. So this will probably get one more coat before I do the base and my decal, and then it'll get another coat over that. I do try to keep my cups to 3 or 4 layers max if possible, because you don't want them getting overly thick or heavy. But I think this looks good overall. I think there are things I would look for differently in my patterns the next go around. And some of it's just the way I trimmed the pattern. Some of them had like flowers on the outside and then flowers on the center. I should have picked a section of the paper with the flower more centered. It's not a big deal, but the flowers wouldn't be so close to the seam that way. So overall, I think this could work for me in the future. I'm going to make sure I get my rim real good too. Get a tight seal up there. I do think this could work well in the future, and I am looking forward to finding more patterns and trying it again. So we will definitely do this again and do some things differently. Okay, I am ready to do the bottom of this. So all I'm going to do is tape off a little bit of the bottom just over the vinyl line. You can use electrical tape, painter's tape, whatever. Just try and get it somewhat straight. And rub that end down good so you don't leak. And I'm going to just to protect the rest of the cup, I'm going to wrap the bottom in plastic wrap. Just make sure your plastic wrap doesn't go below your tape line and you'll be fine. It's just to protect the cup from overspray or anything. If you want, you can put another layer of tape over that. It's not required, but if you don't trust your plastic wrap, you can just go back around between the tape and the plastic wrap, just to give it that little bit of extra protection. And then I'm going to go out and spray it. I've decided I'm going to do a pale pink. So I'm going to use the Satin Ballet Slipper from Krylon. And then after that dries, I'm going to peel my tape and I'm going to give that edge another strip of the rose gold washi tape that I used. So I will be back. I'm also going to at the same time get my decal cut and ready to apply. So I'll be ready for just a final coat. Okay, so I'm going to get this off of here. It's a pretty good clean line. And the pink is a pretty good match. So this is my back. So I want my front to be opposite. And I have a decal cut. It was very finicky. It's a very subtle little decal. And it just simply says Mom. And if it's not quite straight, I'm not going to fight it because it's already been difficult enough to get to this point. So it's just a simple little rose gold frame with some rose gold roses. It says Mom. Nothing flashy. I couldn't cut it small enough to just fit up here. That was never going to happen. So, and I'm going to put another band of rose gold here. As I believe I mentioned, I do have a little bubble here. I'm going to try and lightly sand before I go back over this. I just really don't want to do too much. So I'm going to go right over that edge. Just to tie that spray paint right back into the bottom. And I do have a little boo-boo on the tape that I saw there. So I'm just going to go a little bit further. Because this tape, you can't tell where it stopped and started really. So, but that is it. It is going to get one more coat of resin or two. I'm going to try and lightly sand that. Probably off camera because I guess I do have a little tiny piece here. Or a little fine. I don't want to go too deep because there's not a ton of resin on this. So this is like 400 grit of fine sandpaper. So I don't think I got into my vinyl. I hope I didn't. But I will bring you back to get that layer on and give you a close-up. Okay, I am back to get a final coat, or second to final, depending on if it needs another coat. This is KS Resin Liquid Stone. It has a little bit of the Mistress Cheat mixed in again, because now the bottom doesn't have that sparkle layer, or this band. Didn't have it, so, and I want everything to match up. This may get one more clear coat after this, but it won't get more glitter at that point. There's plenty on here at this point. So, I'm trying to be careful over my decal because it is so thin. And I am giving this a pretty good coat because this is the last cup I'm doing right now, and I'm not going to waste the material. I'd rather give this a better coat because this is technically the third coat for this cup. It might be enough because I did have 2 coats before I did the spray paint. So I'll decide tomorrow if it needs one more or not. So I'm just going to make sure I have everything coated. Well coated. And I'm going to remove my gloves and hit it with the torch real quick, and then I'm going to bring you down for the close-up so you can see it complete. Because nothing's going to change at this point. So if I show it to you now, you're seeing what the final product is going to look like. I'm just hitting it all once with the torch. I'm not going to keep going around and around and around. once is plenty. So I'm going to move the ring light a little bit and get my finger back out of the way. Turn the turner a little bit. And you see that gorgeous little decal we went with. This is so pretty. That pink I chose just worked absolutely perfectly. I'm gonna have to turn you to try and get the whole cup in. I went with the roses in the decal just because I realized after the fact the way these patterns were, pretty much all of the floral detail ended up on the back. So I wanted some towards the front. So that's why I went with the decal the way I did. But that's it. Printed at home vinyl from a digital paper set.